Hi and welcome to the Cloaked Hedgehog's YouTube channel and part 3 of the Dogman Werewolf crash course. In this episode, which will be longer than the others since there's much to cover, I'm going to talk about the theories concerning the Dogman and its nature. I was thinking of dividing it up into 2 episodes, but Crash Course Part 3 Part 1 just looks weird. First, I also want to address the fact that many of you listeners think that I'm new to this field simply because my YouTube channel is. I'm not new. Collecting all those sightings for the Dogman map has taken at least 5-6 years. I started on my own Google Earth map first, and then I decided to share it with the world, so I created the map you see today. I've also blogged for 4 years, and I've been virtually obsessed with werewolves, later known as Dogmen, since I was 5, and I'm now 43, so it's been a while. There's practically nothing pertaining to this subject that I haven't read. It's just that I cringe at the thought of advertising or in any way recommending my own work, so I don't. Maybe it's because I'm Swedish. You're not supposed to think that anything you do is remotely good when you're Swedish, so I don't know. So I've just trudged on, written posts and been very discreet about it all. And I never considered making videos. I honestly didn't think that I had the voice for it. But I've had such wonderful feedback since I started, and I want to thank you all very, very much for this, really. You don't know how much I appreciate you all. Anyway, back to topic. In episode 1 of this crash course I said, what is a Dogman? And I went on to describe its physical characteristics, its behavior, its sounds, etc. And in this episode we're going to look a little deeper into the subject of what a Dogman is. Though not too deep, as this is merely a crash course. Always so much more to learn. I'm going to mention the various theories concerning the very nature of the Dogman, some of which you will find plausible, others not so much. But the important thing to remember is that all of these theories are just that, theories. We're talking about a creature whose very existence to this day is unrecognized by science. Regardless of what some people know, those who have encountered one, regardless of what many of us believe, we can't forget that the Dogman is either a cryptid, an undiscovered species, or something even harder to explain than that. When it comes to pure facts about Dogman, I listed those in episode 1. Other than that, there are no more facts, just conjecture. It might even be a stretch to call the facts facts, considering the unverified nature of what we're dealing with here. Still, what I refer to as facts are the things that are verified by witnesses of this creature. Then there is the question of whether you believe the witnesses, and whether you believe the witnesses talking about specific factors that doesn't seem to fit with your own idea about the Dogman phenomenon. I know there are other researchers in this field whom I generally respect, but who won't accept all aspects of certain witness accounts. This is a danger. I believe most of us working in this field mainly do so because we want to help people. We hear about the traumas created by encounters, and we feel so bad for these individuals. But ignoring those with stories that don't sit right with you because you've already made up your mind about what these beings are, leaves those people out in the cold, still suffering from their trauma. That's why I want to emphasize how crucial it is to remain open and unattached to any of the theories I'm about to present. We're dealing with something unrecognized by science. Thus, we shouldn't feel the need to limit ourselves to the current state of science. Science is moving. It hasn't peaked. We don't know all there is to know by now, not by a long shot. So if some of these theories seem unscientific to you, just keep that in mind. We know ball lightning exists, but we still can't explain exactly how it works or even exactly what it is. That doesn't mean it isn't a thing. We're going to start with the theory of evolution. Not the general one, I'm not touching that hornet's nest, but the theory that Dogman might be a natural species that has evolved into its current form. For those who desperately try to stay scientific but still believe in the Dogman, this is the preferred theory. The claim is that either a natural species, be it wolf, dog, coyote, or an extinct species such as direwolf or amphibian, believed to have survived in small numbers somewhere, have evolved into the Dogman of today. They cite the fact that some dogs are able to stand up on two legs and even walk like that for shorter distances. An endemic group of whatever species it originated with might thus have become more adept at this bipedal business, possibly through thousands or millions of years, and learn to use it to get a better view of the surrounding terrain. That is the theory of natural evolution. It does have its flaws, though, as well as all the other theories. For instance, when the Dogman shifts between quadrupedal and bipedal motion, it doesn't just stand up. In several cases, this motion is accompanied by a loud popping sound, kind of like a human joint cracking. The creature also seems to stretch its limbs in weird ways, kind of adjusting itself. It's almost as if it has two hip sockets and two shoulder sockets it can shift between, which would facilitate this ability it seems to have of walking as comfortably on four legs as on two. Personally, I have never heard of any natural animal with this peculiar feature. Snakes, for instance, can dislocate their jaws to swallow large prey, but a dislocated joint cannot support weight, which seems to indicate that the joints of the Dogman instead slip into another socket. Moving on. Some people think Dogmen are either coming to this planet from elsewhere in the universe or through portals from another dimension. Dimension is one of these buzzwords that people throw around a lot these days, as well as a few others I will mention later. The theory is that a wormhole or portal can somehow open up between our four-dimensional universe and another, and that interdimensional beings can pass through. Alternatively, there's a theory that the Large Hadron Collider buildings, most famously the CERN Large Hadron Collider in Switzerland, are responsible for creating tears in the very fabric of time-space. This is because concerns have been raised about colliding particles at very high speed might lead to the creation of exotic particles behaving in unpredictable ways. Before the Large Hadron Collider was built, the largest hadron collider was the Tevatron in Batavia, Illinois. This area just happens to be very near the area where the Dogman first sprung up in such numbers that it became a thing. Northeastern Illinois, southeastern Wisconsin. Anyway, certain Dogman sightings seem to correlate with observations of UFOs, and the same goes for Bigfoots. This has led to the theory that there is a connection somehow between UFOs and Dogmen or Bigfoots. The portal theory comes from people having experienced strange phenomena right before their Dogman sighting. Some claim to have actually witnessed a portal opening in the woods before them. Said portal is supposed to look roughly like either a hole in the woods or an area in the woods which has vibrating air, such as can be observed over a tarmac road on a hot day. Most commonly, though, people instead experience an unnatural, uneasy silence in the woods suddenly. All insect and bird noises fade away, even the sound of the wind might disappear, and they might possibly observe strange lights or orbs. This is then followed by a Dogman encounter, or possibly a Bigfoot one. That is the theory of portals/UFOs/holes. A more biblical theory is the Nephilim one. These days, Nephilim has become another buzzword. 10 years ago, nobody really talked about this, even though the information has existed for a few thousand years. But one day, though, someone was studying the Book of Enoch and shared his conclusions. The Book of Enoch is an ancient Jewish religious work ascribed by tradition to Enoch. Enoch was the great-grandfather of Noah, and in his work, among other things, he writes about the Watchers. To make a very, very, very long story much shorter, I can say that the Watchers were a group of angels. Some were good, some were less good. They were sent by God on a mission to watch over the humans. In time, though, a bunch of these angels came to lust after human women. These lecherous angels then defected and proceeded to, do the horizontal mambo with the human women. They also taught the humans forbidden knowledge, and when all this was discovered by God, there was, as you might have guessed, punishment time. The Watchers, under the leader Samyasa, came to be bound in the valleys of the earth until Judgment Day. However, the intermingling of the Watchers and the human women had consequences, and eventually these poor women gave birth to these consequences. These children were the Nephilim. They grew up to be savage giants, it is said, who pillaged the earth and endangered humanity. According to the Book of Enoch, God eventually sent the great flood to cleanse the earth of these abominations, but some are said to have survived on mountain tops here and there. The Bible mentions this briefly in Genesis 6:4. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that. And it goes on to say something very interesting in Matthew 24:37. But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. This last part has been interpreted as meaning that as numerous as the Nephilim were in the time before the great flood, that's how numerous they will once again be when Jesus comes back. Meaning that after the culling caused by the flood, the surviving ones will slowly increase in number until they are again as numerous as they were in the days of Noah. This would then account for the increase in cryptid sightings these days and allude to that we're now living in the end times. This is quite the convenient theory, since it's kind of a catch-all. It wouldn't just explain the Dogman, but also Bigfoots and Goatmen and Mothmen and what have you. Who could say what the result of an unholy union between a human and an angel would look like? What do angels look like? They probably don't look like the romanticized humans with wings that we see these days. Well, that was, in a nutshell, the Nephilim theory. The genetic manipulation theory is one that might be considered as belonging to the field of conspiracy theories. Be that as it may, it's intriguing because sometimes it seems to be the only way to explain a being such as a Dogman, which seems to have a little bit of wolf in it, a little bit hyena, a little bit of human or primate, and perhaps a little bit of feline. The theory is basically that either the military or aliens, or the military in cooperation with aliens, have created these Dogmen in secret underground labs by means of genetic manipulation, splicing, and whatnot. Their motive have been claimed to be to create a super soldier of sorts. There are even much darker theories pertaining to this, but I'm not going there right now. Rabbit holes are deep and steep, and there's no telling where you'll end up. Some claim the Nazis were playing around with this genetic manipulation business even back in the World War II days, and that they still are. It's important to remember, when walking over the minefield of conspiracy theories, to never believe anything you can't verify from at least 2 other sources. Being that this theory involves the military, and that the military prefers to keep their goings-on a secret, this is obviously difficult. But then, instead of blindly believing anything, create a folder in your head and stuff all these unverifiable things in there. Name it something like things that need to be tied together to other things. And just keep it there until you stumble over those other things. That's what I do. The last theory is the one about actual werewolves and skinwalkers and similar. I lump these together because the basic principle is roughly the same. Shape-shifting. The hardest of these theories for the strictly scientific to accept or even tolerate. Yet this is where the history lies. It's a theory as valid as any other. In general, shape-shifting can mean one of 2 things. An actual change in the physical body, like we for example see in movies, or the creation of a tulpa, a physical thought form, which the consciousness of the creator then inhabits. The former has of course been made to seem utterly impossible because of Hollywood. Movies are movies and have nothing to do with reality, right? Maybe not. Or at least maybe not exactly like in the movies. It would definitely be more convenient to just brush all the stories of shape-shifting aside, since we all know that science has deemed it impossible. But that is actually not the scientific way to look at it. Science is supposed to be unbiased, and to look at a problem presented before it, considering all parts of it. You can't remove a constant or variable from an equation and expect the result to be correct. Historically, people would become werewolves by either donning a wolf pelt or at the very least a wolfskin belt. These was said to have been given to them by the devil himself. One could also rub oneself with devil oil, a concoction with horrible ingredients, by the way. In some areas, the 7th son of a 7th son was most definitely a werewolf. In other areas, you became a werewolf if your mother crawled through the amniotic sac from a horse in an attempt to soothe the pains of childbirth. There are hundreds of variations, but the one thing they all have in common is a human being physically transforming into a werewolf. Many of these traditions are no doubt mere superstition, I'll give you that much. But even some of the Dogman sightings of today seem to indicate that a transforming of some kind is taking place. More on that soon. Like I mentioned in previous episodes, the word Skinwalker usually refers to the Navajo, but the same concept exists in all shamanistic cultures all over the world. So they may not be called skinwalkers, they can be called things like bear walkers or other things, but the point is the practice exists everywhere. But skinwalkers in particular are the evil, mostly male witches in Navajo culture. And to be absolutely honest, this is why I dreaded making this episode. I don't want anything to do with these things. Nothing at all. But it needs to be told, so here goes, I guess. First, I want to mention and acknowledge a Navajo friend of mine called John Yassey. A lot of the information I have on skinwalkers now I have received from him. He is very intelligent, educated, and also knowledgeable about Navajo legends. I intend to use all the information he has given me and write a proper blog post about it when I have the time, but time has been very scarce lately since I stupidly started making videos. Still, I'm going to give you a quick rundown of the Skinwalkers, even though I feel my stomach turning as I do. If I were you, I would stop listening now, because you will feel dirty in a bad way afterwards. First, I need to mention that skinwalking in itself isn't inherently evil. This practice can and is apparently performed by good shamans and medicine men as well. It's the methods and the motives that differ. In the olden days, skinwalking was used in a way that was beneficial to the tribe and the people. In animal form, a spy could get close enough to an enemy's camp and eavesdrop on them, learning their plans. Eventually, though, the practice was corrupted by selfish, greedy individuals who wanted to use it for personal gain. The word Ye-Nalgloshi in Navajo refers to the skinwalkers. The word Nalgloshi means a four-legged animal and is used for any normal such creatures. It's the Ye part that warns of supernatural danger and power. The word Yeya means be careful. A Ye-Nalgloshi is a very specific type of witch. It's an Antiini, a practitioner of the witchery way, also known as the corpse poison way. Most often this practice is learned from a parent or grandparent, and most practitioners are male. There's absolutely nothing cute or cozy about the corpse poison way. It's all about curses and disease, and like the name implies, they use powdered corpses, known as anti, corpse poison. The best anti are the corpses of children, especially twins. The best body parts for it are the fingerprints and the bones of the back of the skull. Still not sick to your stomach? How about the initiation into the witchery way, which involves murdering a close relative, usually a sibling or a parent or a child? Other crimes associated with this practice are necrophilia, grave robbing, obviously, they need corpses, and incest. The skinwalker is driven by revenge and jealousy. They try to harm anyone they feel have wronged them in any way, and they put curses on those that they envy. The powder they carry, the corpse poison, is said to look like corn pollen used in blessing ceremonies. Navajos are afraid to be outside with lots of people around, like at a marketplace. A skinwalker in human form could blow its powder in someone's face without being noticed, and the victim would then get sick and possibly die, and there wouldn't be anything showing up in the post-mortem toxicology test. The most common animal forms of the skinwalker are coyote, wolf, owl, fox, or crow. But the Ye-Nalgloshi is said to have the power to change into any animal they choose. Some believe a skinwalker also has the ability to steal a person's face. It is said that if you lock eyes with a skinwalker, they can take over your body. Sometimes a skinwalker is described as a perfect representation of the animal whose form it has taken. Others say that there are always telltale signs. Sometimes the gait of the animal isn't quite right, and most commonly it's the eyes that look different. A skinwalker in animal form may not have reflective eyes like most animals do, but it does when in human form. According to legend, A Skinwalker has the ability to read human thoughts, and they possess the ability to make any human or animal sound they want. They are said to use this ability to lure people out of the safety of their homes. Sometimes the Skinwalker tries to get inside a house and attack the residents. Other times it remains outside and bangs on the walls, knocks on the windows, and climbs onto the roof. Sometimes a strange animal-like figure is seen outside the window looking in. A Skinwalker can also attack a vehicle and cause an accident. This is of particular interest, since so many dogmen seem to enjoy doing this very thing. The Skinwalkers are described as being fast and agile, and they are practically impossible to catch. Regular bullets just won't hit them, and they are said not to leave any tracks behind to follow. To actually shoot and kill a Skinwalker requires a bullet dipped in white ash, but even then, hitting it is practically impossible. Another way of killing a Skinwalker is if its name is found out. Pronouncing their full name would cause the Skinwalker to either get sick or die for the sins it has committed. You might be forgiven for thinking that anything involving shape-shifting must just be superstition. I used to think so too. It just seems so outlandish and unscientific and plain weird. Certain encounters with dogmen that people have had, though, have made me at least consider whether there could be some truth to this. I will link to 3 such encounters in the description below, so you can read them for yourself and consider whether there might be something to this after all. Personally, I don't subscribe to any one theory. Different accounts make me lean in different directions. Therefore, I don't believe all dogmen are the same. Not only do they come with various physical variations, but the circumstances are somewhat different as well. For me, it's not a question of whether I believe in werewolves or dogmen. It's more a case of having become convinced that they exist. As of right now, there are 532 sightings on my map. All of these sightings I have read about several times by now, and I've talked to many witnesses via email and chat, and inevitably I've come to notice certain patterns, certain details that seem to be common, even though most witnesses have nothing to do with each other. This is what has me convinced that the Dogman phenomenon is a real one, even though it may not be explainable by science as of yet. Science moves on. It breaks new ground. It challenges old paradigms as it does. We think we live in such a modern, highly developed and scientifically minded time now, and we do, compared to the past. But what about the future? We don't know what major discoveries will come next. In the last roughly 100 years, we have gotten penicillin, a polio vaccine, quantum mechanics, TVs, computers, and the internet. Imagine what the next 100 years will bring of scientific discovery. Well, this was all for the crash course. I hope I managed to stay at least relatively neutral and unbiased, and that I was able to provide you with a little bit of information. I will continue with the sightings videos for a while, and after that I'm not sure yet how I'll proceed. Maybe I'll make a vlog, since about a month on YouTube has yielded about 10 times more feedback than the 4 years of blogging has. I guess we're living in an age of videos now. Nobody seems to read anymore. Still, I like the text-based blog posts. They're much easier to use when you're looking for something specific than having to search through a video. But we'll see how things develop. Now go out there and get some air. Or have those cookies that I promised in episode 1 that you could bake if you held back on forming a hasty opinion. Either way, take care, be safe, and hopefully I'll see you soon again.